Today, we're going to dig into two really powerful stories that get right to the heart of a huge question. Is what you believe something you choose for yourself, or is it a story that's kind of written for you by the world outside? Let's jump right in.
I mean, really think about that for a second. Are your deepest convictions, the things that make you, truly your own? Or have they been shaped by history, by society, maybe even by stories other people tell? We're about to look at two very different accounts that tackle this exact problem.
So, you've got these two big competing ideas, right? On one side, there's what comes from inside your personal choices, a sense of divine command, or just that deep inner strength. But then, you have the pressure from the outside. Things like social pressure, huge historical plots, even political agendas trying to sway you. This is the battleground we're going to be exploring. Okay, let's start with this massive historical story from our first source. It talks about this alleged plot from the outside, a plan specifically designed to break a community's faith from the inside out. So the whole story revolves around this one figure, Abdullah ibn Saba. According to this account, he was an outsider who realized he couldn't defeat the early Muslim community with an army. So what was his supposed game plan? Go undercover. He allegedly posed as a new convert to Islam, but his real goal was to tear its unity apart and ignite a devastating civil war. Now, this is where the alleged strategy gets really clever. It wasn't a direct attack, it was a step-by-step plan. First, you slip into these newer communities where people's faith might not be as solid. Then, you start planting these really extreme, out-there ideas. You create division by claiming there's some secret knowledge only a few people have. And the final move? You stir up a rebellion against the leader, the Caliph Uthman. And here's where it gets really extreme. To show just how far this corruption supposedly went, the account says that Ibn Saba at one point pointed to Ali, who was the Prophet's own cousin, and declared, "He is God." This was seen as a deliberate attempt to destroy the very foundation of the faith. So how does this all end? Well, the alleged plot builds and builds until it reaches this tragic climax, the siege and assassination of the third caliph, Uthman. And the key to the whole thing was deception. See, the rebels couldn't just march on the capital city, Medina. It was too well defended. So according to the source, they used the annual Hajj pilgrimage as their cover. They just blended in with thousands of real pilgrims to get inside the city without anyone suspecting a thing. You have to picture this. The rebels have his house surrounded. His allies come to him and give him three clear ways out. 1, call in an army to protect you. 2, get out of town, escape to safety in Syria. Or 3, just give up, abdicate, and let the rebels have what they want. He said no to all of them. And this was his reason, as this history tells it. It's such a powerful statement of that internal conviction we talked about. He refused to call for soldiers because he would not be the reason Muslims started fighting other Muslims. He chose to be a shield for his people instead of using them as a shield for himself. And you've got to remember, this wasn't some young guy making a rash decision. He was 82 years old when he made this stand. The story ends with this incredibly powerful, almost cinematic image. As the assassins finally broke in, Uthman was sitting there, reading the Quran. And his blood is said to have spilled right onto this exact verse, a verse that talks about division and trusting in God against those who cause it. Okay, so take a deep breath, because we are about to do a complete 180. We're shifting away from this huge historical conspiracy driven by outside forces to something deeply personal, an intimate story of faith, also from our source material. So this second narrative takes on a question you've probably heard before, one often aimed at Muslim women who wear the hijab. The source frames all these questions as judgments from the outside, The assumption is always that the reason has to be external, that it's about fashion or family pressure or something else. But the response that this account gives is just this powerful, rhythmic rejection of all those outside pressures. First, the source says, this choice, it's not for my family. And it's definitely not about caving to what society wants or expects. No, the point here is that the act isn't about submitting to any person or any group. It's framed as an act of obedience to God. It's a direct, personal, internal conviction. And I think this is such a powerful way to reframe that word, obedience. Because in this context, it's not about weakness. It's not about being forced. Instead, it's defined as a deliberate, intentional choice, one that's actually a source of strength, of identity, and of faith. So let's pull these two really different stories back together. On one hand, you have this epic, historical drama about a whole community being attacked from the outside. And on the other, you have this quiet, intimate declaration of personal faith against judgment from the outside. This really helps break it down. You see, the first story is huge. It's communal. It's about defending a faith's purity from an external enemy. The second is small. It's personal. It's about defending your inner conviction from external judgment. But look at that last row. What's fascinating is that both stories are really about the same thing, a search for what's authentic. One finds it in preserving a sacred history, the other finds it in obeying a divine command. Two totally different roads leading to the same internal truth. And that kind of leaves us with this final thought, doesn't it? Both of these narratives are about this constant battle between our internal sense of who we are and all the pressures of the outside world. It really makes you wonder, in our own lives, which stories end up winning? The ones that are written for us or the ones we choose to write for ourselves? Thanks for joining us.